Pithoragarh, a small town in United Province of Uttar Pradesh. It was 1917, nestled in the Himalayas. Pithoragarh exuded a tranquil beauty that captivated the soul. Moreover, the mountains of Pithoragarh were not static entities. They were dynamic landscapes that changed with the seasons, each one bringing its own beauty and challenges. During the British colonial period, Pithoragarh served as an important strategic outpost in the Himalayan region. The British recognized its geographical significance due to its proximity to the borders of Tibet and Nepal. They established a military presence in Pithoragarh to assert control over the frontier areas and to monitor any political or military activities in the region. During this period, British officials and administrators were appointed to various administrative and military positions in Pithoragarh. These positions included roles such as district administrators, military officers, engineers, doctors, educators, and other civil servants. Amidst the majestic scenery and the echoes of an empire, there was Douglas, a man in his mid-years with eyes that held stories untold and a heart that yearned for adventure. Douglas had been appointed as the postman of Pithoragarh, a responsibility he took with earnest pride. Every morning, before the sun even began to paint the sky with hues of orange and pink, Douglas would set out on his journey. A leather satchel filled with letters and parcels slung over his shoulder. Douglas was doing this job for the past 10 years. Now, as the time passed, Britishers expanded their territories around Pithoragarh, and to take full control over the forest produces and to keep a check on any illegal activities in the forest area, they built various small checkposts in the deep forest regions. Now, with this expansion, work for Douglas also increased. Now, he was told to carry the mails as long as 15 to 20 miles once a week into the deep forest. Authorities told Douglas to stay at the small checkpost in forest with the forest guard and return next day. His first long route assignment was to go to the village of Tari in the heart of the dense forest surrounding Pithoragarh, nestled amidst towering trees and winding streams lay the secluded village of Tari. It was a place untouched by the hustle and bustle of the outside world, where time seemed to move at its own leisurely pace. And it was here that Douglas, the newly appointed postman for this long journey, embarked on his first assignment. When he saw the map, he estimated it would take him around 5 to 6 hours to reach this village. As he was alone and there was no support, he started his journey at 7 in the morning. For the first few miles, he took a bullock cart that dropped him just at the edge of the deep forest. He was standing on a rock and looking at the deep and the dense forest in front of him. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, the call of birds, the chatter of monkeys, the rush of distant rivers. And Douglas felt a sense of exhilaration coursing through his veins as he ventured deeper into its embrace. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth. During his young age, he used to go to the deep forest of South Africa with his grandfather on some hunting ventures. So he knew the protocols and the sound of alarm calls made by different animals. Amidst the beauty of his surroundings, there was also danger lurking in every shadow. Wild animals prowled through the undergrowth, and treacherous paths threatened to send Douglas tumbling into the abyss below. Yet he pressed on, his senses sharpened by the adrenaline coursing through his veins, his instincts honed by years of traversing the wilderness. As he ventured deeper into the dense forest, a sense of unease crept over him, like a shadow cast by unseen eyes. The air grew heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, and every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs set his heart racing with anticipation. It was as he could sense the presence of something primal lurking on the shadows, a silent predator, stalking its prey and the patience of a hunter and the stealth of a ghost. He scanned the underbrush with keen eyes, searching for any sign of movement, any hint of the creature that lay hidden among the bushes. As the day wore on, the Douglas's journey through the forest continued. The pangs of hunger gnawed at his belly, reminding him of the sustenance he needed to press on. With the sun beginning its descent towards the horizon, he knew it was time to make camp and replenish his strength. Finding a clearing nestled amidst the trees, Douglas set down his leather satchel and began to gather wood for a fire. The crackling flames would provide not only warmth but also a means to cook a simple meal. With the fire roaring to life, Douglas rummaged through his provisions, pulling out a loaf of crusty bread, a wedge of cheese, and a few dried fruits from his satchel. It wasn't lavish feast, but it would suffice to ease the ache in his belly and replenish his energy for the journey ahead. Sitting cross-legged by the fire, Douglas tore off a chunk of bread and layered it with a slice of cheese, savoring the simple pleasure of a meal enjoyed in the heart of nature. The flavors mingled in his tongue, the tang of the cheese complementing the earthy sweetness of the bread, and he closed his eyes, allowing himself to fully immerse in the moment. As he ate, the sound of the forest surrounded him, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the gentle murmur of a nearby stream, and he felt a sense of peace wash over him. Despite the challenges and dangers that lay ahead, there was solace to be found in the simple act of nourishing his body and replenishing his spirit. As the sun began to descend behind the jagged peaks of the Himalayas, casting a warm glow over the forest, Douglas reached his destination with a sense of relief. His journey through the wilderness had been long and arduous, and the sight of the sturdy wooden structure nestled amidst the trees was a great welcome sight indeed. Standing guard at the entrance was a young man named Peter, his uniform crisp and his gaze sharp as he surveyed the surroundings with a watchful eye. Douglas approached him with a polite nod. Relieved, Douglas set down his leather satchel and began to unpack his belongings. As he prepared his campsite, Peter approached him with a steaming mug of tea, the fragrant aroma wafting through the crisp evening air. "Here," Peter said, offering the mug to Douglas with a friendly grin, "a little something to warm you up. It gets chilly in these parts after dark." As the fire crackled and the shadows danced around them, Douglas and Peter sat in companionable silence, savoring the warmth of the flames and the comforting embrace of the forest. The stars glittered overhead, casting a soft glow over the clearing as the night deepened around them. After finishing their meal, Peter leaned back against a fallen log, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the reach of the firelight. You know, Douglas, he began, his voice low as conspiratorial. The forest takes on a whole new life at night. It's as if the very air crackles with energy, and every shadow hides a secret waiting to be revealed. Douglas nodded, his curiosity piqued by Peter's words. I have heard tales of the forest coming alive at night, he replied, his voice hushed in reverence for the mysteries of the wilderness. But I have never experienced it firsthand. Peter's eyes sparkled with excitement as he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Ah, then you are in for a treat, he said, a mischievous grin playing at the corners of his lips. The creatures of the forest, they move with a grace and stealth that's unmatched by any human. You will hear the rustle of the leaves as they pass by, the soft padding of paws on the forest floor, and if you are lucky, you might even catch a glimpse of their glowing eyes in the darkness. Douglas felt a shiver run down his spine at the thought of encountering the wild creatures of the forest in the dead of night. Yet, there was also a thrill of excitement coursing through the veins, a sense of adventure that stirred something deep within him. As they gathered around the flickering campfire, Peter's withered face illuminated by the dancing flames, he shared tales of forests, secrets, and the creatures that prowled its depths. Each word sent a thrill down Douglas's spine, igniting his adventurous spirit. But the night took a sudden turn when distant roars echoed through the trees, sending a jolt of adrenaline coursing through their veins. Exhaustion finally caught up with Douglas and Peter after their thrilling stories. With the night enveloping them in its comforting embrace, they settled down beside the crackling fire, their eyelids heavy with fatigue. The calls of night owls, birds, and rustling leaves lulled them into a deep slumber, their dreams woven with echoes of the wild adventures they had shared. Around them, the forest whispered its secrets, a silent guardian watching them as they rested beneath its ancient canopy. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Douglas stirred from his sleep, greeted by the gentle caress of a morning breeze. Blinking away the remnants of sleep, he found Peter still dozing peacefully beside him, his withered face softened by the light of dawn. Despite the comforting presence of the morning sun, the shadows of the forest seemed to loom larger, casting doubt upon his courage. Turning to Peter, whose withered face bore the marks of countless encounters with the wilderness, Douglas hesitated before voicing his request. Peter, Peter, he began, his voice betraying the uncertainty gnawing at his resolve. Do you have a spare rifle? Just for the safety, you know. Peter regarded Douglas with a knowing gaze, his eyes reflecting the lingering traces of the night's tension. Without a word, he reached for a withered rifle leaning against the nearby tree, its polished wood and gleaming metal a testament to the years of use. Though it seems that Douglas was afraid of the situation, but it was not. Douglas was a very, very brave man. That's why he managed to come that deep inside the forest without any help and Without the use of any weapon, he took the rifle and started to make his move towards Pithoragarh. Douglas completed his first assignment on this route. As the time passed, in total he completed around 8 assignments. It was his ninth assignment when he again started from Pithoragarh, took the same route towards the Tari village. As Douglas trudged along the winding path from Pithoragarh to Tari village, the tranquility of the forest was shattered by the urgent voices of a group of villagers waiting for him near Patoli village. Their faces were etched with worry, their eyes pleading for assistance. Please help us, please help us, one of the villagers implored, his voice quivering with fear. A tiger has taken a young boy in our village. We need your expertise with the rifle to track down the beast and ensure the safety of our community. Surprised by their sudden request and the weight of the responsibility thrust upon him, Douglas hesitated for a moment before asking, "But how do you know me? Why do you think I can help?" The villagers exchanged knowing glances before one of them stepped forward, his expression grave. "We have seen you pass through this route many times, always carrying a rifle," he explained. "We know you are familiar with these woods and we trust you to lead us in this time of need." "I understand your plight," Douglas began, his voice filled with empathy. "But I am on official duty. I cannot deviate from my responsibilities." But his words fell on deaf ears as a woman, her face etched with anguish, sank to her knees before him, her tears mingling with the dust of the forest floor. "Please, sir," she begged, her voice trembling with emotion. "My son's life hangs in the balance. I beg you, help us. Save him, please save him." The sight of her anguish pierced Douglas's resolve. His heart, heavy with the weight of the plea, with a sigh, he knelt down beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I will do what I can," he promised, his voice barely above a whisper. And with that, Douglas and the villagers set off into the depths of the forest. For Douglas knew that in that moment he wasn't just a government official bound by duty, but a beacon of hope in the darkness, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the name of compassion and humanity. Upon reaching Patoli village, Douglas wasted no time in assessing the situation. The atmosphere was tense as he inspected the scene of the tiger attack, his keen eyes scanning the ground for any clues that might lead them to the elusive predator. His heart sank as he discovered the telltale signs of a tiger's presence: large, menacing pug marks imprinted in the soft earth. It was clear that they were dealing with a formidable foe, one that posed a significant threat to the safety of the villagers. Turning to the gathered crowd, Douglas's voice rang out with authority. "It's imperative that nobody ventures outside today and tonight," he declared, his tone firm. "We must minimize the risk of further encounters with the tiger until we can devise a plan to deal with it." The villagers nodded in understanding, their expressions a mixture of fear and gratitude for Douglas's guidance. With a sense of urgency, they set out, fortifying their homes and heeding Douglas's warning to stay indoors until the danger had passed. As night fell and the village settled into an uneasy quiet, Douglas sought refuge in a humble room provided by one of the villagers. Alone with his thoughts, he mulled over the events of the day. his mind racing with strategies to protect the community from the looming threat. As Douglas settled into the makeshift accommodations provided by the villagers, a haunting cry pierced the stillness of the night, the mournful wail of a woman mourning the loss of a loved one echoed through the darkness, sending shivers down Douglas's spine. Despite the thick walls of the humble room, the anguished cries seemed to reverberate within his very soul, a stark reminder of the fragility of life in the unforgiving wilderness. His heart ached with sympathy for the grieving woman, knowing that her pain was testament to the harsh reality of their existence. Douglas was in his room. The clock was ticking, and the night was horrific. As the eerie silence of the night was shattered by the alarming call of a barking deer, Douglas's senses snapped to attention. The continuous cries of the deer echoed through the forest. A dire warning of the impending danger. At around 2 in the night, chilling cry of a woman pierced the night air, her desperate pleas for the help mingling with the terrifying sound of the tiger scratching at the door of her home. Grabbing his rifle with practiced ease, Douglas sprang into action, his heart pounding with adrenaline fueled urgency. Racing towards the source of the commotion, he arrived at the scene to find a frantic gathering of villagers, their faces etched with fear and panic. In the dim moonlight, Douglas's keen eyes caught sight of the telltale pug marks of the tiger, confirming his worst fears. The predator had returned, its hunger for blood driving it to desperate measures. With grim determination, Douglas surveyed the scene, his mind racing with strategies to protect the vulnerable villagers. He knew that this was no ordinary tiger. It had become a man-eater, a relentless hunter driven by insatiable hunger and primal instinct. Urging the terrified villagers to seek safety indoors, Douglas took charge of the situation, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. He knew that confronting the tiger in the darkness of the night would only invite disaster, and so he instructed the villagers to remain vigilant and wait for dawn to break before venturing outside again. Returning to his humble room, Douglas attempted to find solace in the embrace of sleep, knowing that the tiger would not dare to strike again under the cover of darkness. Though the weight of responsibility hung heavy on his shoulders, he took comfort in the knowledge that he had done everything in his power to protect the people of Patholi village from the relentless predator that lurked in the shadows. As the first light of dawn, Douglas stirred from his restless sleep, his mind still reeling from the harrowing events of the night. With a weary sigh, he rose from his makeshift bed, the weight of responsibility heavy upon his shoulders. Gathering his belongings and shouldering his rifle, Douglas set out to meet the forest guard Peter, his thoughts consumed by the urgent task at hand. Despite the lingering sense of unease, he knew that duty called, and he could not shirk his responsibilities as the appointed postman of Pithoragarh. Navigating the similar paths of the forest, Douglas eventually found Peter at the designated meeting spot, a small clearing bathed in the gentle morning light. With a nod of greeting, he accepted the mail from the seasoned forest guard, his thoughts already turning to the journey ahead. With a heavy heart, Douglas relayed the events of the harrowing night in Patoli village to Peter. His voice waited with concern for the safety of the villagers. He implored the seasoned forest guard to lend his assistance in tracking down the man eating tiger that threatened their lives. But Peter's response was one of solemn resignation. I understand your plight, Douglas. He began, his tone tinged with regret. But my duty lies here, protecting the forest checkpost. If I were to leave, it would leave the paths vulnerable to illegal poachers and woodcutters, putting the entire ecosystem at risk. Though disappointed by Peter's refusal to accompany him, Douglas respected the forest guard's unwavering commitment to his duty. With a nod of understanding, he bid Peter farewell, knowing that he would have to face the dangers ahead alone. Armed with his rifle and a steadfast resolve, Douglas set out on the journey to Pithoragarh, his footsteps echoing through the quiet solitude of the forest. Though the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, he drew strength from the knowledge that he carried the hopes and prayers of the villagers with him, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. As Douglas continued his journey towards Pithoragarh, midway he found a crowd gathered near the Patoli village. Approaching the gathered crowd, Douglas listened intently as they relayed the chilling details of the tiger's latest attack. His jaw clenched with determination as he realized the gravity of the situation. The predator had struck again, its insatiable hunger claiming yet another innocent victim. With a sense of urgency, Douglas addressed the villagers, his voice ringing out with authority. I understand your fear and desperation, he began, his gaze sweeping over the somber faces before him. But right now, I must continue on to Pithoragarh for my duty. He paused for a moment, his eyes meeting theirs with unwavering resolve. I promise you, I will return by evening to Patoli village. Until then, I urge each and every one of you to remain indoors, away from the danger that lurks in the shadows. As Douglas journeyed towards Pithoragarh, his mind wrestled with the weight of his predicament. The news of the tiger's relentless attacks weighed heavily on him, but he knew that seeking help from authorities in Pithoragarh could jeopardize not only his job but also his freedom. For Douglas was carrying an illegal rifle, one that was not assigned to him, a desperate measure taken in the face of escalating danger posed by the man-eating tiger. His decision to take matters into his own hands had been born out of sense of duty and compassion, but now it threatened to unravel everything he had worked so hard to build. As he neared Pithoragarh, Douglas grappled with the harsh reality of his situation. His job as a postman was to deliver mail, not to protect villagers from deadly predators. To involve the authorities would mean risking everything, his livelihood, his reputation, and perhaps even his freedom. With a heavy heart, Douglas made the difficult decision to continue on his journey alone. Though he longed to seek help for the villagers of Patoli, he knew that doing so would only invite scrutiny and condemnation. And so he resolved to return to the village under the cover of darkness, his determination to protect the innocent outweighing the consequences that awaited him. As the evening descended upon Patoli village, Douglas reached there, wasted no time in investigating the scene of the tiger attacks. With a keen eye and a steady hand, he meticulously studied the patterns of the predator's movements, noting the paths it had taken to reach its unsuspecting victims. As dusk settled and the village retreated indoors, Douglas made his way to the last remaining path, a narrow trail leading through the dense forest. With determination etched upon his brow, he ascended a towering deodar tree, its sturdy branches offering a vantage point from which he could keep watch over the night. The hours passed in tense anticipation, the forest alive with the eerie calls of barking deer and the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. With every passing moment, Douglas remained vigilant, his senses sharp and his grip steady upon the rifle cradled in his arms. And then, as the first light of dawn painted the horizon in shades of soft pink and gold, Douglas's vigilance was rewarded. Beneath the shadowy canopy of the forest, he spotted the unmistakable silhouette of the tiger, its predatory gaze fixed upon him with unyielding intensity. With nerves of steel, Douglas raised his rifle, his aim true and unwavering as he took careful aim at the deadly predator. In a single, decisive motion, he squeezed the trigger, the crack of the gunshot shattering the stillness of the morning air. The tiger fell with a heavy thud, its lifeless form slumping to the forest floor as Douglas descended from his perch, his heart pounding with a mixture of relief and triumph. The villagers emerged from their homes, their faces alight with gratitude and joy as they beheld the fallen beast before them. In that moment, Douglas knew that he had fulfilled his duty not only as a postman, but as a guardian of the community he had come to call his own. With a sense of pride and accomplishment, he resumed his journey, the weight of the rifle no longer a burden, but a symbol of unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. As he disappeared into the depths of the forest, the echoes of his triumph reverberated through the tranquil village of Patholi, a testament to the indomitable spirit of one man and the power of compassion to overcome even the most fearsome of adversaries.